On June 30th, I had a very serious pain in my stomach, and I could not eat anything. I walked into the hospital, and they said, well, let's take a CT scan. And then they said, well, you need an operation. And I said, okay, when? And they said, tonight. So at 9 o'clock at night, they did an operation, like a 4-hour operation, in the middle of the night to remove part of my stomach and colon and stuff to get it sewed back together again. And it took like 3 or 4 weeks for it to start working again. But so anyway, I got out, and the doctor said, well, we think you have stage 4 cancer, you know. And I talked to the oncologist, and he said, well, I'd be surprised if you're living at the end of 6 months. And I said, that's great, you know, I'm ready to move on. And so even I talked to the palliative care doctors that came around from Kaiser, and I said, you know, my religion believes this, you know, that we live on, we move on, and I'm ready to move on, and I really welcome the opportunity to leave this plane and go to the next one. And they said, well, that's very mature of you. And anyway, as I was talking to them, I felt the welling up in my heart about the support of ECKANKAR, of the ECK, coming to me, you know, and supporting me. And it really felt like I was really blessed and really supported and really taken care of. So what I noticed about ECKANKAR, and what I fully believe, is that ECKANKAR has answers to things that other teachings don't really give you any answers and stuff. And it gives you a path, a very strong path, and it gives you experiences so that you know that you're on the right path and stuff. So that's very important to me. I have no other interest. I quit reading any other books that aren't really ECKANKAR books, well, except a few science fiction novels for entertainment. It's just they have a lot of the answers about life. Who am I? What am I doing here? You know, what is my purpose and stuff? And where am I going? You know, which is even more important. And so they have it all outlined, you know, from the teachings of Sri Harold and from Paul Twitchell. I think it's a very organized set. At first it seems fairly simple, but it's not. You know, the more you get into it, the more intense it is, you know, which is good, actually, because then you're ready for it and stuff. I think that ECKANKAR leads you to be able to understand, and it doesn't lead you into something that you're not ready for, you know. It gives you the background. No fear, you know. Well, the opposite of fear is love, you know, and if you're connected to that and the love of everything that's coming to you from the act, that there's no place for fear. I started getting better, and I said, well, I'd like to talk to my friends and ECKANKAR and stuff. And I said, well, I want to do a going away party. And they said, well, nobody's done that. You can't do that, you know. I said, well, yes, I can, you know. And so it didn't work out to have it at the X Center, but I had it here at there's a activity room at the apartment that has room for 30 people. So we had, you know, about 15 ECKAs and the really close friends of mine, and about 6 or so of my own friends that came in, and everybody had a great time. We went from 11 to about 3, and I had a lot of food and just showing pictures and talking and stuff, and it was a great way to say goodbye and to really say, you know, how much I miss these people, and you know, what my connection to them and stuff. I had a little notice that says, we come as eagles. You're led by the master into the next level and stuff. and the ones that aren't ready to stay there are led to the karma court, you know, and given some help to, and then come back as reincarnation. So one of the things I told the doctor, I was really sick, and I said, I want 2 months of clarity where I can take care of my personal affairs and stuff, and I have a little money saved that I want to distribute to you know, to ECKANKAR and to my nieces and nephews. And I said, just give me 2 months of clarity, and then I'm ready to go, you know. And then also I did an initiate report, and that's what I wrote to Harold. I said, you know, I'd like a couple of months to get my affairs in order, which I have done. My niece Christy came out for a couple of weekends and helped me clean up a lot of papers and stuff. It's been working very well. Of course, you never finish with everything, but I have cleared out a lot of things that you know, make me feel. It's like I feel like I can go on now that I've taken care of this. My first experience with ECKANKAR was in the 1960s. I was really searching for different spiritual paths and stuff, and I read, I was very impressed with Paul Twitchell's book, In My Soul I'm Free, or I guess it was written by Brad Steiger. But I read it and I signed up. There was nobody in the area to talk to, and they were sending me lessons every month instead of a book. So I wrote back to them and I said, is there anybody I can talk to? And so they said, well, you have to drive to LA to see this man, and you can talk to him there. There's nobody in the Bay Area. And I went down there and I saw this guy, and he said, I'm going to tell you this very sacred word, he said, and you can't write it down, you can't let anybody know it, you know. And I said, okay. So he said, the secret word is Hugh. But he said, it's a secret, you know. So I said, okay. So I went back up, and I just wasn't satisfied without being able to converse with anybody. So, and there was no classes or anything. This was before Zoom. So anyway, I went and signed up with the direct disciple of Yogananda's. Anyway, so that takes us up to when I got to India. Then I decided to build houses. So I bought a lot and designed a house and built it in Santa Cruz and the Felton area. Anyway, so I decided not to continue with the Dhyan Yogi. I ended up meeting this guy. The whole story is, you know, it's like a, you know, not taking risks so much, but taking chances, you know. And I just had the desire to find a true Indian guru, so that's why I went to India, you know. Then I went back to Colorado for a while, and then I came back and went to lived in Los Angeles for about 10 years, and I worked with a spiritual organization called the Ark, which was learning how to speak from your heart and being able to express your inner self and stuff. And it was extremely good for me, because it actually turned me into more of an extrovert, where I was able to actually get up and speak in front of people and stuff, and talk about myself and stuff, and with other people. But anyway, it's about working with speaking from your heart and really having meaningful conversations with people, not just surface stuff. And that was an excellent training and stuff. So then I came out here and built a house for a friend of mine from college. Then I was over 65, and I was wondering what I should do, and I didn't really want to do any more construction because it was extremely stressful. So I looked for volunteer work, and so I volunteered for the East-West bookstore, metaphysical bookstore, which I've always been really fascinated with, metaphysical. While I was working at the bookstore, there was a writer that came by as Ann Archer Butcher, wrote Inner Guidance, and we sold hundreds of those books at the bookstore. And then she came out and did a talk in Palo Alto, and there was about 400 people there. And I was really impressed with her talk. And also I was working with a fellow ECKANKAR called Reza. So I decided, well, I think I should give this a try. This looks really interesting. So I started, and I had all kinds of extremely vivid dreams at the first, and very powerful dreams. I felt like I really had a lot of power, and then I felt I had a lot of knowledge, and I was moving around and kept telling Reza about my dreams. After about a month, he said, stop telling me your dreams, because I think you should keep them to yourself. So anyway, that was part of the growing, but that was, and then I did go to the Worldwide later, and I met Ann Archer Butcher, and talked to her and told her she was inspiration and stuff, and she was just tickled. But one of the first things that I did, I noticed that there was quite a group of people in ECKANKAR, and I was in the Redwood City satsang, but there was for 2 years they did a California seminar at the Monterey, and they did a fantastic program, and I was really delighted to go down and be able to mix with all the people. And I went to the Worldwide several times, and so I just sort of keep working along and getting initiations and moving up the line. And I really didn't get into it the first time because they were just sending me lessons, and there was nobody to talk to or no discussions or anything. So I joined this Easy Way satsang, and it was at Raj Patel's house. I assumed that it was for beginners, because it was the first satsang. But later I found out that the majority of people there were already high initiates. So I was amazed, but that didn't stop me from talking and stuff. And Jessica would always ask me if, when it come to a place where nobody would say anything, she'd say, "Carl, what do you think?" So I would give him my opinion anyway, and so it was a great time. So I've been in the satsangs ever since. The satsangs are really important to me. Now, of course, they're all on Zoom, but that's still very important. When I was writing this book, my memoirs, I had no diaries or anything to go on. I would just go back, I would think of this event that happened in my life that was emotionally, something, and I would go back into that period of my life and actually relive it as an observer and write it down. And that's what gave me the material for the book, because it was all out of my mind. It wasn't anything that was written down. So that was kind of soul travel in reverse, going into the past and reliving these things. And I consider it one of the things that I've done in this life that's very memorable, because it's 140 pages, and it's a lot of pictures, and it's I wrote it initially to tell my nieces and nephews what life was like in the 1950s and 60s and 70s, and but also as I was doing it, I revisited my childhood and stuff, and really had a much better feeling about it than I did at the time. I thought I was overworked and underpaid, as a teenager, don't we all? And but I realized that I had a great time, living out in nature and stuff, and going to college, and then driving to California and working out here. And the book gave me a very deep sense of accomplishment, that I had something of a legacy to leave this place. Like, you wonder if you're going to leave something, that matters, And the book definitely did that for me. I was working at the East-West bookstore. I worked for a lady who was the book buyer, and she was a would-be writer, and I was telling her funny stories about my childhood, and she said, "Don't tell me." She said, write it down. So she was definitely encouraged me as an author. And then so then I went and I joined there was a Mountain View Los Altos adult center class on writing memoirs. So I was in that for about 6 or 8 years. And that was really good. There was about 20 people there, and you wrote like 5 pages or something, and you made copies and passed it around, and then you read it, and they would write comments on your copies and give them back to you, so you could decide whether you wanted to use their corrections or not and stuff. So that was an excellent process. You know, I started writing probably close to 10 years. Well, I borrowed some pictures from the internet, so I can't publish it so I just decided to self-publish it, and so I had 40 copies printed and just gave them to all my relatives and friends that asked for them. And what really matters is my working in ECKANKAR for 10 years, and I really feel that I've done a tremendous amount of spiritual advancement through ECKANKAR that I wouldn't have done without it. And so I think my book is an accomplishment. I think I've done a lot of things, and I took flying lessons. Started when I was in LA, and then I came back. I did go to University of Hawaii for a semester, you know, and when I came back, got a pilot's license, I've got a contractor's license, an engineer's license, and I did all these things, and I traveled around the world several times. But you know, it's what you do personally in your spiritual life that's holds the most value, I think. You know, you have to follow your heart and find something that works for you. Find a spiritual path, find a teacher. I think everybody has spiritual guidance inside them. I mean, and I think you need to follow it as much as you can. And don't be drawn away by any of the negative influences. What we live in now is nothing like it was 50 years ago. You know, there's a tremendous amount of change that's happened. So I was thinking, like, if a person is reincarnated, it's not going to be the same. You know, it's going to be a whole different world, because 20 years from now things are going to be a lot different. There's artificial intelligence and all that, computers and all that kind of stuff. You're born here to learn a lesson, so you need to just learn the lesson, and I think pay attention to karma. You know, don't take on a lot of karma that you don't need. You know, but I think you need to figure out what you want to do with your life, and where you want to end up, and that may change. You don't know when you're 20 years old. You really don't know exactly what you're heading for. I was doing meditation with Roy Eugene Davis, who was a direct disciple of Yogananda. When Roy Davis came to LA and said he was thinking about going to see Satya Sai Baba, I said, well, maybe I'll go too. And so I decided to leave my job and buy a one-way ticket to New Delhi from San Francisco. I could get stops in Tokyo and Hong Kong, Bangkok, Taiwan, Bangkok, and Sri Lanka. I went to India, and I went to Bangalore and got an 8-hour bus ride up to Sai Baba's ashram. And there was an Indian there who had been educated in London, and he said, "Can I help you?" And so he helped me. And he said, "Why don't you come see my guru before you leave India?" Which was this guy, Dhyan Yogi Madhusudan Das. And so I said, okay. And so then I moved on. I traveled all around India, and I ended up in Ahmedabad to see the Dhyan Yogi. They gave me, instead of a pillow to sit down, they just gave me like a dishcloth. And it was very hard terrazzo floor. So I sat down and meditated. And after the meditation, he said, "Well, what did you feel?" And I said, "Well, all I could feel was my legs in pain." He said, "If you come to my ashram, I will teach you how to meditate." We sat there, and the first thing he said was, "You need some purification." And I said, "Okay, what do I do?" And so he gave me a Ram mantra about Ram, and I said, well, okay, how long should I do this? And he said, 5 lakhs, which means in India 500,000 times. So, and you must do it at least 500 a day, or you have to start all over again. So, doing mantras for 6 hours a day to finish it. It took me 4 years to finish that. And that's when I was in India, I was able to just accept everything that was there. And so I figured I'd been there before because it wasn't strange to me, you know. So I figured and I had a real fondness for Tibet. I think so. I did have wives in Tibet and India, and probably in England and that too, you know. People think karma is what you do, but it's more than that. It's what you think, and what you feel, and what you do. You think that it needs to start with your mind. If you see yourself starting to have negative thoughts, you should raise your consciousness by chanting Hugh for one thing, and you can sort of move yourself into an observer status instead of a participant. My spiritual practice is basically I get up at 6:30 every morning because I can't stay. I go to sleep about 10:30 or 11 because I can't stay up any later. I just fall asleep. So I get up at 6:30 and then take a shower, and 7 to 7:30 I read some ECKANKAR books or something, and then from 7:30 to 8 I do my contemplation every morning, exactly 7:30 to 8. And I think it's important to do it at the same time every day. The other thing that I really concentrate on is satsang. We have monthly satsang on Zoom. And so I spend the week going over that chapter and writing down notes and stuff and sitting in the library, and because I get distracted here with the TV and the refrigerator and everything. So I spend time, you know, preparing, and then for that hour and a half. You know, that's a big part of my teaching and stuff. And sometimes I go to light and sound service, and of course I missed a month when I was sick. The Hugh is interesting. I know I went to lunch with a couple people from the bookstore who were not Eckists, and one lady there was very negative, and I started chanting Hugh under my breath. But I think it's an individual thing. I think you have to decide what it can do for you, and I know when I'm sleeping sometimes, or when I wake up, you know, I'll just sit and chant Hugh and try to go back to sleep and stuff. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't really in ECKANKAR that much in the 60s. I mean, that was just like a couple of months and to just try it out, and it didn't work out for that time. The love and support I feel from the ECK community is fantastic. I've never felt that in any other group. That they feel like that they would support me in almost anything I needed. My boss at East West, and then also from Dion Claybaugh, who helped me finish it up. And I started out with when I was in Pennsylvania. I was born in Pennsylvania in 1939. There's my grandparents, and then my father worked on a farm. He was a graduate from Penn State University in agriculture, and then we moved to Colorado for his health, and that's my mother and my 4 siblings. I drove horses when I was starting from about when I was 10 or 11 years old. And I did chores, and my father insisted that every money we make go into an account to pay off our college, so I did. Went to Colorado State University. I studied civil engineering. One summer I didn't find a job, so I worked on the railroad, replacing railroad ties. I worked for the Bureau of Reclamation, who sent me out to California to Los Banos for a summer, where I did soil testing as a technician. And then when I got my degree, there was a notice on the bulletin board about the state of California was hiring civil engineers and to work on the Oroville Dam. So I worked on the Oroville, came out here and worked on the Oroville Dam. I did have an aunt and uncle that lived in Palo Alto, which I came out and saw quite a bit. They were kind of my family out here. And there was a draft, so then I went and joined the Army Reserve and went to Fort Ord for 6 months at an Army Reserve training. And then I decided I needed to broaden my education, so I applied for and got admitted to the University of Hawaii to study as an unclassified graduate student. So I studied there for 1 semester, decided that wasn't what I was looking for. I wanted more of the experiential thing. So I came back and worked at the dam a little more. Well, the Oroville Dam was, of course, a 10-year project. It was a big project. Then I went back to Colorado. I worked for my brother, who had a contracting firm, and we put up a 360-foot long bike path bridge over a river north of Denver. My brother had bought 1.5 acres of land up in the mountains of Colorado, about 9,000 feet, and he asked if I wanted to come building him a log cabin. So I said, sure, so I actually built him this log cabin, and I was there by myself, living in a trailer, and just building this cabin by myself. I had some help for a little while, but most of it was just me individually just putting the logs together and building the cabin. That was an exciting project because I designed the cabin and then got the permit and then actually built it. My last job was for a friend of mine that I knew in college. I built it was $1.5 million house in Palo Alto, up in the mountains, and that was my last job. In the meantime, I was interested in reincarnation and reading the biography of Edgar Cayce and others. I signed up to receive the Rosicrucian lessons and visited a spiritual church. One of the Rosicrucian lessons was to set a mirror against the wall in a dark room, light a candle, and place it in front of the mirror, sit on the floor and gaze into the mirror. One was supposed to see one's face change to what you looked like in a past life. Maybe I didn't stick to it long enough, but I never saw my face change. A book that really grabbed my attention was In My Soul I Am Free by Brad Steiger. It was about the life and teachings of Paul Twitchell, who was starting a group called ECKANKAR. It was a spiritual path that encouraged one to leave your body with a guide and learn spiritual truths on the higher dimensions. Karma and reincarnation were accepted belief. I signed up and started receiving monthly lessons in the mail. The lessons were great, but I had difficulties with the program. The first difficulty was that Paul said that a lot of the teaching was delivered in dreams, and I didn't remember my dreams well. The other thing was that there were no people around that I could talk to. I gradually lost interest. I guess it was not the right time. Who knew that ECKANKAR would be a major part of my life 50 years later? The end.
Thank you, Carol.
You're welcome.